At 5 p.m. All right, Ms. Ewing, would you mind leading us in the moment of silence and pledge, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. All right, board members, good evening. Is everybody logged in okay? Ms. Hill, you okay? All right, Dr. Sorensen, you're getting there as well? Okay. Well, we can, all right, perfect. All right, 3.1, address agenda, consider adoption or recommend changes. Ms. Hill, any items that you may want to pull for consent or any changes that you would like to make to this evening's agenda?
No, thank you.
All right, Dr. Sorensen?
No, sir.
Mrs. Rooks?
No, thank you.
All right, Mrs. Ewing?
No, thank you.
All right, we do have a public comment, Ms. Contra, on 5.3, Human Resources Report. So I'd like to pull 5.3, please. I just need a second for that.
I'll second that.
All right. With that said, I do need a motion to approve this evening's agenda, minus 5.3 of the Human Resources Report.
I'll move that we approve this agenda minus 5.3 Human Resource Report.
Sorry, and I guess I should have said moving 5.3 to out of consent. Right, Kim?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me rephrase. I need a motion to approve this evening's agenda with the movement of 5.3 Human Resources Report out of the consent agenda.
I motion that we approve the agenda tonight, moving 5.3 out of consent agenda.
I'll second that. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 5 yeas. Thank you, board members. Okay. All right, moving down to items removed from consent. Ms. Contra, I'm assuming this is now 6.1.
President Sandoval, I believe we need to do 4.1 public comment.
Oh, I apologize. I totally skipped that, didn't I? I apologize, everybody. That's my bad. All right, we're going to move back to public comments, request to address the governing board regarding matters not included on the agenda. And looks like we have, let me move this around here so I'm organized. We have 3 public comments this evening. As always, the public rules of conduct, the board president shall keep control of the meeting and require the speakers and the audience to refrain from abusive or profane remarks, disruptive outbursts, applause, protests, or other conduct which disrupts or interferes with the orderly conduct of the business of the meeting. Personal attacks on board members, staff, or members of the public are not allowed. It is inappropriate to utilize a public hearing, the public comment segment, or any other agenda items for the purpose of making political speeches. Engaging in such conduct and failing to cease such conduct upon request of the presiding officer will be grounds for ending a speaker's time at the podium or for the removal of any disruptive person from the meeting room at the direction of the board president. With that said, we welcome everybody's voice this evening. First public comment. Again, we'll spend 3 minutes per individual, a total of 30 minutes, but like I said, we only have three individuals speaking during public comment this evening. The first one is from Elijah Watson.
Thank you, President Sandoval, members of the board. My name is Elijah Watson. I am an advocate for equitable education here in Arizona. Now, let me first start by saying Happy Pride Month to all who celebrate it. I'm sure there's a number of people in this room that don't really agree with the premise of having a month to celebrate LGBTQ plus pride, but don't fret. You are seen, loved, and you have the right to celebrate. On a different note, however, I am here really to express my frustration and exhaustion from repeatedly hearing rhetoric that suggests that this district uphold its mission statement of every student, every day, with the exception of girls. It has been very, very disheartening to witness this rhetoric being used as a barrier to hinder the progress of policies that would actually benefit every student every day. Now, allow me to explain this with an example. In the last 2 weeks or so, the board convened to discuss the necessity of a bond override, a crucial step towards the improvement of this district and its community. However, during the discussion period, both Board Member Hill and Board Member Rooks promptly declared the refusal to support the override, but not for the reasons you might think. The rationale was that the district had not implemented the prejudicial and transphobic bathroom ban, which they argued would have prevented young minor girls from being molested on school campuses. However, they clearly forgot to mention that such a ban would put vulnerable LGBTQ+ students at the forefront of facing potential physical and also sexual assault in bathrooms assigned to their biological sex, as indicated by research and statistics. It's really important to clarify that the district's mission statement is not every student every day with the exception of girls. While the district may not have chosen to adopt a prejudicial and hateful bathroom ban, it has consistently approved field trips, participation in events, and allocated lots and lots of money towards female interscholastic activities. Therefore, I implore you to refrain from employing such ignorant rhetoric to advance an agenda of disruption, which only serves to neglect your duties as members of this board. Simply put, if you're unwilling to fulfill your responsibilities and put these very obvious political agendas behind you, then please resign. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Next public comment comes from Ms. Jeannie Castine.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, cabinet. My name is Jeannie Castine, and I'm here really as a concerned taxpayer. Full disclosure, I don't live in Peoria or the Peoria Unified School District, but I have a lot of friends who do, and I know a lot of young people who do, and I'm just really concerned about some of the things that are happening, and so I want it to be public record. A letter that was sent out to this board today. I know the board members are aware of it, but probably folks in the audience are not. The Peoria Unified Governing Board received a letter today from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. I'm with a local organization called Secular AZ. We're also focused on the separation of church and state, protecting the Constitution and First Amendment. And so this letter that you all received is about some of the same concerns that we have, specifically with scripture being read at board meetings. And so I just want to lay it out for taxpayers in this district what this could mean, because it seems to me like a purposeful kind of, let's invite lawsuits to the district, let's chase out the superintendent, let's see if we can get defamation lawsuits from some of our staff members who have been disparaged by board members, and see if we can just rack up, legal fees to bankrupt the district. The Freedom from Religion letter says, if board members continue to impose religion on those in attendance, it will subject the school district to unnecessary liability and potential financial strain. When FFRF secured a court order against a California school district regarding its school board prayers, the court ordered the district to pay more than $200,000 in the plaintiff's attorney fees and costs. After appeal, the court ordered the district to pay an additional $75,000 for plaintiff's attorney's fees and costs associated with the appeal, for a total of more than $250,000. So Peoria taxpayers, there are folks on this board who don't have your best interests at heart. The fiscal conservatism that's needed to be a board member does not exist with some of these board members. And so I just want this to be out there on your video stream, on public record, so that folks know in 2024 what some board members are trying to do to undermine the community of Peoria and to undermine the school district. And I'll go on with the FFRF letter. As school board members, you serve a diverse population that consists not only of Christians, but also minority religious and non-religious staff members. Religious communications made in your official capacity send a message that excludes those who are among the 37% of Americans who are non-Christians. So pay attention, Peoria. 2024 is right around the corner, and there are folks here who do not have your best interests at heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castine. Next public comment comes from Mr. Josh Gray.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. First, I want to give a shout out to all the PUSD students who set a record for the most scholarships money awarded in the district ever. That's a huge achievement and a great testament to the teachers that we have in this district. So start off, that's amazing. Next, although I am super tired of talking about this, since it's Pride Month, I want to thank the members of the board that voted against creating a transphobic bathroom policy. You are protecting the district's most vulnerable students while protecting the district from violating legal precedent. However, I have to respond to some comments that were made since that meeting. And this might shock some of y'all, but I'm a Christian myself. I'm a confirmed member of an international denomination, and I even grew up as an altar boy. I am disgusted by the comments that were made by a board member when they stated that God is not blessing this district. Putting aside the arrogance of that statement, that you know what God is or is not blessing, this is a public school district. I don't want my kids learning about your God in our public schools. That, coupled with your attacks against the board's decision, render you no longer fit to serve on this board, in my opinion. We have real issues in this district, like overcrowding, teacher shortages, bullying, facilities that need to be updated, and these are not being addressed because every board meeting since has turned into a circus of outside agitators. You were elected to work to support this district, not attack it. For these reasons, I am joining with hundreds of community members that have contacted Board Member Hill in recent weeks, and I am calling for your resignation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. All right, that does conclude public comment. Just as a matter of protocol, Ms. Hill and Ms. Rooks, I mean, your names were mentioned. It is up to you if you want to respond in any way, but entirely up to you.
Well, I guess I'll respond. First of all, it is my First Amendment right to speak how I feel. Everyone has a First Amendment right. You have a First Amendment right to speak how you feel as well. I am a Christian. I answer to one God, and it's everyone's God. There's one God. Whether that you believe that to be true or not, that is truth. As far as this organization that is anti-Christian, I think it's ridiculous to tell people what they can and can't say. I'm an elected official for PUSD. I don't work for PUSD. I don't earn a living. I volunteer. I'm an elected official, and I have every right to speak my mind. And I personally believe, and the reason I'm talking about God more, is I believe that our district has gone down a bad path, and many districts have. And I think it's because we've turned away from some very good moral upbringing. That's where I stand. I stand with God, period.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Ms. Rexit?
I'm just going to say, Rebecca Hill, don't resign. Keep fighting with me and every student every day except for the girls.
Thank you, Ms. Rex. All right, that does conclude public comment this evening. Thank you, everybody, for your voices. We will now move on to the item that was pulled from consent, which is now 6.1, right, Ms. Contra?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
All right. This line item is the Human Resources Report, and public comment comes from Maria. It won't start until you reach. Just
President
Hey,
Sandoval.
Maria, I apologize. Can you do me a favor? Can you go ahead and hand that stack of papers to Ms. Contra, and she'll make sure that everybody gets them? Thank you. No, that's okay. Ms. Contra will, okay. Yes, no, of course. I just,
Okay, let's see.
welcome.
Thank you. I'm Maria Adendorf. I think a lot of you know me. Maybe you don't remember, but I think you do. So my child has not been attending school for the last over 100 days because she was not allowed to attend school in retaliation for me for advocating for her. What does that mean? And what does it have to do with the report? So last communication we received from Special Education Department was essentially an ultimatum that if we don't sign a form that alters our child finalized IEP, she cannot get FAPE, free appropriate public education, for those who don't know. And that was provided to all of you. in February. What does it have to do with the HR report? Megan Burbank was the one who sent us that statement, that email. And she's being promoted to Special Education Assistant Director today. So the district assigned an investigator, which we were told was a third-party investigator who will investigate objectively. Needless to say, it wasn't a third party. It was a district retained attorney who did investigation. She promised us to provide a report. However, in the end, in May, she said, we will not be getting an investigative report as complaining party. And so here are the things that were done to us in the last 6 months, over a whole year. This is all, by the way, because we advocated for her to receive multisensory structured reading program. So this was what happened after we kept advocating for that. And what happened, we were given an ultimatum, we won't get FAPE. Our finalized IEP was altered by Megan Burbank. Ms. Lori Garcia was fully aware of that as well too, and she got promoted nonetheless, and you guys got our complaint report as well.
Maria, if you don't mind, if you can refrain from mentioning names during this report out, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, sounds
you.
good. So now, if you listening to me right now, because this is all illegal, we're talking about the bathrooms for the last several months, and while I have nothing against anything, this is a debatable issue. However, the thing that is not debatable and against the law, discrimination and retaliation, is being swept under the rug by you elected officials who we elected to represent us, to represent our voices. So if you guys thinking, so we don't have child with disability, so it doesn't affect us, think again, because it does affect everyone, because the Peoria School District was recently reprimanded for discrimination against a New York Times article
Maria,
that I gave out.
I appreciate your time. Your time's up. Thank you.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Please look up
Thank you.
OCR investigation.
All right. That said, bringing back 6.1 Human Resources Report, I do need a motion to approve the Human Resources Report.
I will motion to approve the Human Resources Report.
I'll second that. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas and 1 abstention. Thank you, board members. All right, moving down to section 7, action items. 7.1, consideration and possible adoption of a resolution ordering and authorizing all matters necessary for a bond election to be held on November 7th, 2023. If this resolution is so adopted, the deadline for submitting arguments with respect to it is August 11th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Ms. Myers, welcome. We do have a few public comments tied to this line item, so after you speak, we'll listen to public comment, and then we'll get into board members' questions and comments. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the Governing Board, Cabinet, and community. At the last Governing Board meeting that was held on Monday, May 22nd, I shared background information from the 2023 Citizens Bond Advisory Committee's recommendation for a $250 million bond authorization and the Governing Board's direction on May 11th, asking administration to work with district advisors to prepare a resolution ordering and authorizing all matters necessary for a $250 million bond election to be held on November 7th, 2023. This evening, this agenda item is agendized for Governing Board consideration and possible action. Administration provided the presentation at the last meeting, so at this point, we will bring that motion and possible action back to the Governing Board for discussion and next steps. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Ms. Myers. As I stated, we have a few public comments tied to this line item, so we'll call these individuals up. All right, same rules apply to public comment tied to line items. So this first public comment comes from Ms. Nikki Enchef. And again, this is tied to this line specifically. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, administrators, and community. I'm a 7-year Peoria resident. You're asking me to pay more taxes for your capital project. My kids all attended Choice Academy schools until 2022-23 when we switched my daughter to Liberty High School. We were skeptical at first, but the staff and teachers at Liberty were warm and helpful, and my daughter was intimidated but had a great start. Every student, every day, prepared to shape tomorrow, except the girls, as it turns out. Then we learned a boy was using the girls' bathrooms, not just to pee, but loitering, making videos, posting concerning content on social media. Over the next few months, the principal, administration, and board avoided responsibility, playing word games and sending me in a never-ending circle of protocol that passed responsibility among them all, referring to a non-existent federal law that required they allow students to use opposite-sex bathrooms. The district's own lawyer concluded at the end of a long presentation we had to fight to be privy to that the court has not ruled on whether or not transgender students have a right to use a bathroom that corresponds with their gender identity. There is a clear bias toward a small group of students, 0.00112% at Liberty.
Ms. Enchef, I apologize. And
this
Ms. Contra,
is
please mark this time.
tied
I want to make sure
to
she gets it back.
the
I just want to
bond.
make sure that we circle back to the
You do.
subject line.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you. So this is a clear bias towards a small group of students, 0.00112% at Liberty, shared by the principal, admin, staff, and board. When a student recently spoke at a board meeting in favor of letting students use opposite-sex bathrooms, President Sandoval commended the student's bravery, but no such praise for a 10-year-old student in tears who was against it. The principal, admin, staff, and board were told of 130 girls who made statements against this practice. They were ignored. Nearly 100 Liberty High School students showed up to use the nurse's bathroom as directed and were told to knock it off, and you made your point. Every student, every day, there's one student at Liberty who insisted on using opposite-sex bathrooms. Why wasn't that student told to knock it off, and you made your point? I looked at the proficiency scores for PUSD. In ELA, 43% are proficient or above, and in math, 37%. Prepared to shape tomorrow? That is worse than nearby Deer Valley. Choice Academies, where my children went, corresponding proficiencies were 71 and 73, nearly 30 and 40 points higher. Currently, only 73% of K-12 students residing in this district attend a PUSD school. Over the next 10 years, you project that only 68% will attend. There's no analysis of why, no plan for a course correction to retain and attract students, no mention of addressing the poor academic performance. A bond would not approve academic performance, the main purpose of a school. How would you convince a constituent in Peoria to pay more taxes for capital projects in a school district with a history of declining enrollments, with less than half of students proficient in ELA and math, and a lack of leadership on an issue that continues to divide your community and dominate board meetings? Every student, every day, prepared to shape tomorrow seems to be just lip service. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Enchef. All right, next public comment tied to this line item comes from Ms. Vanessa Aslan Blair.
Good evening, Governing Board, Superintendent, Cabinet. First, I was one of the people that got that phone call surveyed about the bond. I put a resounding yes, because I know for a fact that it would not raise taxes. It would keep them the same. Because of the bond, it goes over for a specific amount of time and you continue to pay for it over that time period. So I know that we will not be paying additional taxes. I also know that one of the things that they were asking me on that phone call was safety and security. That was a huge point that I had. And one of the big reasons that I said, yes, I would vote for it. In addition to that, after having heard all of this after several board meetings, other things were added that we could possibly add to this bond item. And many people were excited hearing the different possibilities and excited that we could make a difference for everyone, girls, everyone. And quite honestly, if there was any policy, we could be looking at it being held up in a court. And I don't think that would hold up right now with helping the girls right now. We need to help everyone right now. A bond would help right now. Everything that would be included in this would be right now. As soon as the voters vote and say yes, and I have talked with multiple people that would vote yes to this bond. They're excited about hearing this initiative, and I'm hoping that we take your guys's the cabinet's recommendation and go for a bond for this coming election. I know that there is additional monies that's coming from the state if you guys decide that you want to hold off and wait, because it is very costly to hold a bond election outside of a separate regular session election. We need a bond, whether it's this year or next year, but please vote yes according with the recommendation. They are an amazing team over here, and I know that this will only help our schools with everything now, not waiting for Supreme Court or whatever. That could take years. And my daughter is not worth years. My daughter deserves help. My son deserves help now. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. All right, final comment, public comment tied to this line item comes from Mr. Josh Gray.
Okay, to start out, I want to thank all the community members that were on the bond committee. As a parent, I appreciate your hard work on this matter. And in my opinion, this decision could best be described as a no-brainer. We all know that schools in the district are overcrowded, teachers are overworked and understaffed, and there are facilities that are in desperate need of repair or update, like having to flush a toilet 3 times is not sustainable. These problems aren't going to be addressed without a bond. I would challenge anyone that is against the bond to go to your child's school and ask the principal what they will spend that bond money on. I'm sure they'll be happy to show you all the areas that need improvement that won't happen without a bond. Also, contrary to what has been said by even some members of the board, this bond isn't going to raise your taxes. We're not asking the residents of Peoria Unified School District for money. We're asking them for their vote. A vote for the future of this district, a vote for the kids of this district. We need this. And a vote against this is a vote against Peoria Unified School District. The one thing that every parent in PUSD has in common is that we want our kids to have the best education possible. I'm sure there's folks in this room that disagree with me like 99% of the time, and that's fine. But this is something we should all agree on. Do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Gray. All right, that ends public comment tied to this line item. Ms. Myers? Welcome back. Board members, I know we had discussions around this line item in our previous board meeting, but questions, comments? Ms. Hill?
I guess I really don't have too much more to discuss with regard to the bond. I kind of said at the last meeting, I'm going to, stake my ground on this. If we can't support 100% of our kids for only supporting 50% of them, I don't think that the school district deserves the bond money. I just don't. I don't support the bond if we can't support 100% of our kids. It's very basic to me. And money is not going to fix the problem that's going on in our schools.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen?
Made comments last time, our kids are worth it.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hill? Ms. Rooks?
Yeah, I'm not supportive of it right now. It's not just the not supporting our girls right now. There is a lot of concerns with this. It's more money this year that we will have to pay. Recent years that we've put the bond on the ballot, it's failed every single time. So the voters are saying no, and that's probably because they've seen the way that the district has been going. And they don't think that that's the right way. I also have concerns about where we're putting the elementary school, right next to Liberty High School, all the traffic concerns. That's a big concern for me. And it just, if we are wanting to invest in our kids, this is not the way to do it. We need to, I think, go back and look and see and re-strategize a lot of these things. I mean, our city of Peoria, reaching out to them, our mayor. I think that this is not going to pass this year, in my opinion, because it hasn't. Especially with everything going on right now, there's a lot of parents that are pulling their kids out of this district and they're going to other districts or they're going to private or charter. So I just think that this is not the right time this year.
Thank you, Mrs. Ricks. Mrs. Ewing.
Thank you. Okay, a couple of things. First off, everybody I speak to definitely wants to invest in our kids, invest in our schools. We have some schools that are, 100 years old, plumbing that hasn't been touched in 40 years. It definitely, all of these needs that are listed are not extravagant things. They're critical and basic needs. So there is a definite need for investment. When I talk to the families of those schools, they want the very best facilities for their students. They want the best curriculum for their students. So there is definitely a need. Anytime we go out for a bond, as we set up here on the board, and even the Citizens Advisory Board has to consider, is the timing right? And based on all the information that was presented to them at that time, they determined not only were all of these the critical needs and needs that they could agree upon, but they also determined at that time that this was the right time. However, they didn't have the information for money that was coming from the state because that wasn't available at that time. And they also didn't have a lot of the information around the bathrooms. And I do believe that if given some time, we do have an opportunity, as Mr. Sandoval, President Sandoval asked last time, to look at how could we repurpose our bathrooms so that we could better accommodate the needs of all of our students. So there is some opportunity there that wasn't presented because a lot of that information we didn't have. In addition to that, I'm not sure how much would have changed, and it might have changed a lot had they known that our superintendent was retiring as well, and that it is very difficult to go out to our voters and say and ask for all of these things when we have a superintendent who's retiring and we don't know who that new leadership is going to be. So it's very important that our district shows stability as we are going into an election for a bond. And I'm not sure I believe that some of the items on the bond would have changed had they known that money was coming in from the state, because there are some things, some critical needs on here that could be addressed with that money coming in from the state. And they might have said, maybe not this year, let's get that new superintendent in place and let's go out for all of these needs. Let's build those relationships within our community and build those positive relationships, build that support, get a strong leader in place so that all of our voters, because 70% of our voters in Peoria don't have kids in the school, so we want to maintain transparency and so forth. So I going into this first vote said, absolutely, I support this bond 100%. I'm ready to hit the ground. I'm ready to knock on every door to tell them how important it is. However, I am very, very concerned about the timing of this coming up this fall with all of those new things in place. It doesn't mean that I am not in support of the bond. I think we absolutely need it. I think we need all of the things on here. I think we have some opportunities to address some concerns by community members. But I'm not sure that this fall is the right timing. And I don't think that there's any way to say, hey, can we push this to 2024 with the way it's written? I think it would be something we would have to maybe ask for a reconsideration maybe in January. But you can clarify that.
Thank you. President Sandoval, Mrs. Ewing, members of the governing board. The recommendation from the Citizens Advisory Committee related to the $250 million bond authorization terminated their work as a committee. We have a potential authorization and resolution for consideration this evening that has certain projects, categories in elementary, high school, transportation, technology, new construction. So if the board would choose not to approve the resolution tonight, there would need to be direction in the future and work related to either bringing back a similar resolution at some date in the future or reconvening a Citizens Advisory Committee to make a future recommendation. So tonight's motion and consideration by the board is simply related to this resolution that captures the recommendation from the Citizens Advisory Committee, and it is related to November 7th, 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ewing. Ms. Myers, so if a future resolution is the direction of the board, if you will, the current committee has done a lot of work. How do we honor and really leverage the amount of work that they've done in a new resolution, right? So would we have to reconvene a new committee? Could we just go with the current committee's recommendations from a needs perspective, and then just have the resolution read, 2024 versus 2023?
If the governing board, President Sandoval, chooses not to approve this resolution, at a point in the future, an alternative motion to direct administration to bring back this resolution at a future date is something you could consider, but we cannot modify the resolution as it stands today. It has June 1st as the date, but it's certainly the board's discretion to redirect administration to bring back a future resolution that mirrors this one, or to reconvene a future Citizens Advisory Committee to review the resolution and possibly make suggestions to modify it.
Gotcha. No, thank you for that. And some of the things that Ms. Ewan brought up, I'm going to echo. I mean, there has been some new events and even information and knowledge that has been had post last committee meeting, right? Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. That said, I mean, look, again, I've always said when I was first elected in 2016, we needed a bond then. One of the things that I said back then was, if we don't invest in our youth now, to Dr. Sorensen's point, our youth absolutely deserve this without question, including our teachers and staff. But if we don't invest now, it's going to become more expensive, and here we are today, more expensive. Yeah. All that said, we need a bond without question. There was a public comment that was made earlier, whether it's this year or next year. The question isn't the need. And, it's when we've gone out in the past, we've gone out with a lot of clarity on what the needs are. But I think, where we have an opportunity, one is, and this is where time will allow for this opportunity to be addressed, is building upon the connections that we have and making new connections with our voters that this district serves. Ms. Ewan brought it up. We have a very diverse voter base. Again, from young families to individuals who are retired and don't have children, but the district still has an impact on their communities. I think there's a lot of education and awareness that can be had, and variable messaging that makes a lot of sense to communicate to the different voter profiles, if you will, that exist within the Peoria Unified School District. We need a bond, but we need to pass a bond. That's the key. It needs to pass without question. And given time to all the stakeholders involved to not only build resources, but also be able to make, face-to-face connections with the voter and invite them into classrooms and just show them, all the greatness that takes place in our classrooms. And our students who are confident and adaptable, I think that makes a huge impact. So, and that takes time. So that said, absolutely the need is there. The committee has done a fantastic job, a lot of work. I don't want to lose that, but I also don't want to lose the bond either. So, that said, I think given time, meaning, looking at a 2024, a resolution that reflects 2024 versus 2023 gives all stakeholders the time to build on that strategy and those tactics that, again, make a connection with the diversity that exists, within this district. So that said, for me, I'd be absolutely going out for a bond in 2024 without question. Board members, any other questions, comments? Nope. Ms. Myers, thank you.
Thank you, President Sandoval. If I may, this is an action item. The board
Yes.
needs to either approve or not approve the resolution as presented tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that said, board members, I do need a motion to approve the consideration and possible adoption of a resolution ordering and authorizing all matters necessary for a bond election to be held on November 7th, 2023. If this resolution is so adopted, the deadline for submitting arguments with respect to it is August 11th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Ms. Contra, actually, I need a motion to first approve 7.1.
I will motion to approve 7.1.
And I do need a second. No.
I'll second.
Board members, please cast your votes. All right, motion fails with 4 nays, 1 yay. Thank you, board members. Ms. Myers, thank you. Okay. Ms. Contra, is it appropriate to ask? You know what? I'll wait till the next board meeting because we don't even have it at the end. Thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Myers, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And I'll say good evening again as we move to our next action item. I'll go ahead and start that one as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to 7.2, Math, Science Curriculum, and Textbook Adoption RFP Award. We do have public comment tied to this line item as well. So, Ms. Myers.
Thank you. Good evening again, President Sandoval, members of the Governing Board, Cabinet, and Community. At the last Governing Board meeting that was held on Monday, May 22nd, Dr. Hernandez and I shared a comprehensive presentation that walked through our RFP and textbook adoption process, in particular, the math, science curriculum and textbook adoption, RFP process, and procurement award recommendation. So last meeting, it was discussion only. This evening, the agenda item is an action item asking the governing board to formally approve the award of RFP, Request for Proposal 23-28-02, Math, Science Curriculum, and Textbook Adoption, awarding to Savas Learning for K-8 Math, K-8 Science, High School Math, and High School Science, and Bedford, Freeman, and Worth for Statistics only, and Cengage Learning for financial algebra and college algebra only. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. All right, as stated, we do have a few public comment tied to this, so we'll listen to those. All right, same rules of conduct apply. First public comment tied to this line item comes from Ms. Vanessa Aslan-Belair. Welcome back.
Governing board, cabinet, teachers, and everyone that's present, thank you. I am a certified 6 through 12 math teacher. I currently work in the elementary Foothills, and I'll also be teaching science next year, in addition to the math curriculum. This is an amazing product. I looked at it, had an opportunity to peruse it, and the recommendation is for these items. Teachers need to know what they're going to be using for the next year. I myself, I'm vested in this. I would love to know what curriculum. I mean, yes, we have scope and sequence. Yes, we go by the state standards, but what supplemental materials, what items do you want us to use? And we start looking at them this summer. I want to be able to make sure I'm ready for the classroom day one for my students. I want to make sure those kiddos have the best advantage, and I'm ready. I know how to use all of the online tools and everything. I know that we have PDs and things like that. I know that those, but those are later. I like looking at this stuff and knowing now. Please take the recommendation. I know all of these teachers are thinking the same exact thing. They want to know what we're going to be using, or are we not going to have anything and we have to scrounge around and make things up on our own, which might not be the best product because we're constantly, making more, and on the fly. Please, we're all amazing educators, but we need whatever it is that you're going to approve. We need this curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment comes from Ms. Jody Brackett. Welcome, Ms. Brackett.
Hello. I viewed all the books myself for months. I have to say this is actually the least favorite. And I'm not the only one that has witnessed that reading it. Savas is not a good curriculum. Again, I know they said they're not going to use this type of, this book particular, but it says, because of the complexity of the genes and proteins involved in sex determination, many variations exist. Some individuals are born with intermediate sex, intersex characteristics, or even with anatomical, can't even read the word, features that do not match an individual's sense of their own gender, transgender individuals. Sex determination is an active area of research that should yield a more sophisticated understanding in years to come. They say that they might be not using that book, but this is again a company that has this in their books and their curriculum, and this is just one little version of it. I would say no for Savas. There was a lot of other books out there that was a lot better than Savas, but I hope the three of you that usually go against the majority will change your mind and vote for the majority that Savas is not the one to go. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Brackett. All right, next public comment tied to this line item comes from Ms. Jeannie Castine.
Hi, once again, Jeannie Castine. Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board. And just a clarification, Secular AZ, FFRF, we are not anti-Christian, we're pro-Constitution. I'm here to speak about the curriculum adoption, and I just want to use this opportunity also to encourage board members and all of us, really, to stay in our respective lanes. A little bit of background. I am a lifelong educator. I taught middle school and high school. I love middle schoolers, and I've seen most of my middle schoolers behave better than some of the board members here. I also sat on my local school board for 8 years. For those, I was the president. We won awards. I was the All Arizona School Board Member of the Year in 2019. We were able to adopt certain things, policies, curriculum, et cetera, because we learned how to play together in the sandbox, even when we disagreed with each other. So I just want to encourage you once again to stay in your lane. Let professionals do the work that they've been trained to do, whether they're lawyers, teachers, scientists, biologists. I trust those folks, and I appreciate Board Member Sorensen for the words last week about being able to trust the process, trust the people, trust that committee. And clearly the majority of that committee and the stakeholders involved, the board members, I hope, are going to go with that majority. So maybe we need more lessons on what majority and minority means here too. I'm also concerned about legal repercussions. I know one of the board members came out on national media and spoke against this curriculum, which again could open the district up to lawsuits and the taxpayers to paying more money and bankrupting the district. So I would encourage that board member who went and spoke against this curriculum to probably recuse themselves to once again avoid any kind of legal repercussion. I'd also like to encourage y'all to maybe have a study session about board ethics and to consider using that study session to adopt a code of ethics. In my district, we did this and found it really helpful.
If
Sure,
you could
to
just stay
stay,
centered around
absolutely,
this
absolutely.
line item. Thank
Right,
you.
again, so, you know, I want you to, I want to appreciate you because just today too, there was a whole paper that came out about a curriculum that provides creationism teaching, which again doesn't go with Arizona standards. And according to this new paper, in the Cultural Studies of Science Education by Dr. Jenna Scaramarja and Professor Michael Reese of the University College of London, both the teaching methods and content placed students at an educational disadvantage. So by adopting curriculum that actually acknowledges real science that does change frequently, you are doing a service to your students. So please adopt this curriculum, both the math and the science, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Castaigne. All right, final public comment tied to this line item comes from Mr. Josh Gray.
Thank you again for giving everybody the opportunity to speak on this today. And thank you, a big thank you to the committee for their hard work in selecting these new materials. As a parent in this district, I really appreciate all the hard work that was put into this. I know it was several hours and time away from your family. So thank you really for your dedication. It's incredible. And also to the cabinet members that have been open and informative when addressing questions and concerns about the curriculum. It's hard to get into the weeds to find the right answer sometimes, so I really appreciate your hard work in this as well. Like, it's no secret that the district needs updated materials. I think at the last meeting someone talked about playing Find Your Parent, seeing if you had like your parents' old book because that's how old the books are. Like, it's not a secret. And contrary to what I've heard here before, science does change, like, all the time. By the way, is Pluto a planet again? Anybody know? All right, anyway. We should be able to keep up with those changes so our kids don't fall behind. This should, again, be what I consider a no-brainer. Support the kids at PUSD by giving them updated learning materials. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. All right, that concludes public comment tied to this line item. Ms. Myers? Welcome back.
Thank you,
All right,
President
board members,
Sandoval.
any further questions, comments? I know this was a line item that we discussed at our last board meeting. Ms. Hill?
Yeah, when it comes to SAVIS and approving this particular curriculum, I do definitely see that we do need new curriculum. You're absolutely right. The curriculum that we have is completely outdated. It's old. The newer information is not in there. I do think we do need new curriculum across the board in our schools. SAVIS definitely isn't the curriculum of choice for me personally. After reviewing the author's personal beliefs on science ever-changing and science being fluid and some of his philosophies on intersex and various things, I don't think there's a foundational truth there for me personally. I don't feel confident with that particular science book and course of study for our students. I think McGraw-Hill personally is a better choice for our students. This is a curriculum that we're going to have possibly for decades. And it's important to, be very cautious, as we all know, at getting it correct. And I know there's Arizona standards that we have to live and die by. I totally understand that. But I also think that we need to stick with what is truth. And I don't believe that Savas, who is also now the owner of Pearson, with all the supplementals that the teachers are going to be able to use in the future, who knows what that's going to bring. I have great hesitation over utilizing Savas, knowing that I don't think that there is a baseline of truth for the science that they're utilizing. It makes me very nervous. And no, I don't think science changes. I think that gravity doesn't change. Boys don't become girls. Girls don't become boys. It's flat. It's constant. Science was created by God. Science was legitimately created to be constant. So no, I don't believe that we need to use Savas. I think it's McGraw-Hill that needs to be the course of study that we should choose.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen.
Yeah, I made my comments last time, but ultimately I think as board members, we look at the process, it was transparent. We had just the quantifiable amount of feedback that we had was significant. And yeah, once again, the process was transparent and open in a multitude of ways, and the people that were digesting all of these different resources, it was obvious their choice. So I'm going to trust our process in this.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Mrs. Rooks?
I just had one question. With the curriculum adoption, will this be a curriculum for Peoria Traditional School as well with science and math, or is it not include that school? I don't know if Dr. Hernandez knows that. I see her over there.
President Sandoval and Mrs. Brooks, for Peoria Traditional, because of the nature of their particular program, they will stick with the program they have for math, and they will likely bring on the program for science. But we are in discussion with Principal Nitschke about that process and what that will look like, and some overall pieces with PTS in general.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I know it's been mentioned with trust a couple of times, and the thing is that trust is not happening right now. It hasn't been happening for the past few years. And when someone is telling you, or as a board member, to stay in your lane, I was elected to this position by 42,000 people in this district. So obviously they want to change. So no, I'm not going to just stay in my lane, because that's not what I advocated for. I advocated that I would speak up if I didn't agree with something that the district is doing. So for me, Savas Learning Company is not the best curriculum company for our district. I believe that it is McGraw-Hill.
Thank you, Ms. Rooks. Ms. Ewing.
Again, I just want to say thank you to all of those who put in the time and effort and the evaluation of all of this. I am with Dr. Sorensen. It was a very transparent process. A lot of stakeholders had a say in making sure that they were bringing the best curriculum to us as board members. So I'm going to follow their recommendation. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ewan. Yeah, same comments as I had last time, really echoing, what was just said, what Dr. Sorensen stated. It's, we've had resident experts, looking at the material, who ultimately made the recommendations of the transparency, which I am very grateful for, that the district certainly had as a standard as we went through the process. The multitude of voices and lenses we're able to look, at this material from, the community to district staff to students, also being involved in this process. So thank you for that. That said, yeah, it's like I said last time, I absolutely support this adoption and the process that we went through. I have faith in the people and the protocol that we took. So thank you.
Well, thank you, President Sandoval. This is a procurement award this evening that started 8+ months ago on October 27th, when the governing board at that time received a presentation from administration walking through exactly what the request for proposal and evaluation process would look like, including both an RFP evaluation committee and a textbook advisory committee. The governing board in October voted 5-0 for us to move forward with the recommended process outlined for both the RFP piece as well as the textbook advisory committee. The process included the 60-day public review with input from community, parents, students, a variety of stakeholders, as well as set evaluation criteria within the RFP that was approved by the governing board that is the basis of the scoring and the awards and recommendation that's made this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. All right. That said, if no further questions, comments, I do need a motion to approve the award of RFP 23-28-02 Math, Science, Curriculum, and Textbook Adoption to the following vendors: Savvis Learning for K-8 Math, K-8 Science, High School Math, and High School Science. Award also includes Bedford, Freeman, and Worth for Statistics only, and is it Cengage? Learning for Financial Algebra and College Algebra only.
I will motion to approve the award of RFP 23-28-02 Math, Science, Curriculum, and Textbook Adoption to the following vendors: Savvis Learning for K-8 Math, K-8 Science, High School Math, and High School Science. And the award also includes the Bedford, Freeman, and Worth for Statistics only, and Cengage Learning for Financial Algebra and College Algebra only.
I'll second that. Ms. Contra, we have a motion made by Ms. Ewing and a second made by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. All right, motion passes with 3 yeas and 2 nays. Thank you, Ms. Myers. Thank you, board members. All right, moving on to 8.1. We have no more public comment. So I do need a motion to convene executive session pursuant to ARS 3-431.03, A1, discussion or consideration of employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, demotion, dismissal, salaries, disciplining or resignation of a public officer, appointee, or employee of any public body. Discussion regarding potential candidates for interim superintendent position. The employee or ees subject to discussion have been provided with written notice of the executive session as is appropriate, but not less than 24 hours for the employee or employees to determine whether the discussion or consideration should occur at a public meeting. Ms. Contra, since there are 2 executive sessions listed, are these separate motions, or we need separate motions for these, right?
We can walk through the vote for both of them, President Sandoval. They are separate motions, just so we can talk about both statutes that are listed instead of having a long paragraph. So we can walk through the action on the first one, the second one, and then convene.
Okay, so you want me to go ahead and read the second one and as well?
Well, let's vote on the first one,
Thank you.
and then we can do
Okay.
the second one.
All right, so I need a motion for 8.1 to move into exec session.
I will motion for 8.1.
I will second.
Ms. Contra, we have a motion made by Ms. Ewing and a second by Ms. Rooks. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 5 yeas. Thank you, board members. All right, moving on to 8.2. I do need a motion to convene executive session pursuant to ARS 3-431.03A4, discussion or consultation for legal advice with the attorney or attorneys of the public body in order to consider its position and instruct its attorneys regarding contract negotiations for the interim superintendent contract.
I will motion that 8.2.
I'll second that. Ms. Contra, we have a motion made by Mrs. Rooks and a second made by myself. All right, board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 5 yeas. Thank you, board members. Members of the audience, this evening, just to give you expectations after the executive sessions are complete, the only line item that we'll go through when we come back to the public meeting is to adjourn. All right, you're more than welcome to stay, but that'll be it. Thank you. Have a great evening.